Hi, my name is Alexander Andreyev, and I'm working in Elsevier, and we're going to host this session together and provide you to give you some answers about some of the questions you might have to some of the existing users that we have. And I'll let you introduce.
Yeah, sure. I'm Megan Guzauskas, and I'm with L'Oreal USA. And I'll give you a little bit more about how we're using Celonis in a few.
Yeah, cool. So we are the customer actually who've been using the Action Engine. I would like to tell you a bit more what we have experienced so far by this new feature that you probably have heard about this morning. Thank you overall also for having me here. Like, very pleased to present in front of you today. I'm working in Elsevier, and for those of you who might not know, we are a global scientific publisher, and we're transforming ourselves into the information and analytics company, which actually provides access to the content to various knowledge workers across the globe. And our primary focus is research and health business. And we serve many, many customers across the world and have multiple types of products. However, I'm not going to tell you a lot about that, but mainly maybe something what differentiates us from others, that we have applied Celonis on our core process. It's not a standard process, very unique for our company, and it's not cannot be really plugged as potentially as an app to connect to our system. So it has been a very unique experience, I think, and I think so far have worked very well. And for that, and also giving to the context of what we actually do, many of you may have probably studied in university and get a degree, and some of you may have needed to publish a scientific article in a scientific journal. And we actually own or manage around 2,000 scientific journals. And we have roughly maybe 300 people who are managing this process end-to-end. So by giving the sheer volumes, it's a fairly limited amount of people who are doing this complex process overall. And to give you a journey of scientific manuscript, maybe for some of you it looks very straightforward. Basically, an author who have conducted scientific research submits an article to one of our journals that we manage, and a managing editor reviews that article and actually sends it to the peer review process. And peer review process is experts sitting across the world in that field of science who are actually able to provide and validation of this research, give you tips and give you suggestions and feedback how to improve that if this article is worthy for publishing. An editor then reviews that, and most of the time he gives kind of sends it back to us for a round of review. And a lot of articles are getting rejected. Just to give you a sheer number, we do get over 1.5 million submissions per year. Out of them, we publish more than 400,000 articles per year. So you can imagine that continuously within our systems, there are many articles in different stages. And to manage this, although similar kind of straightforward process, actually may not be like this. So once the editor takes the decision for an article, it's being sent to our production team, which puts it into the kind of right format and sends it over to our platforms, distribution platforms, curation platforms, our customers. And also, if needed, it could be printed as well. But if you look at that process, in reality, also maybe you have seen like it looks like a spaghetti graph. So there could be a lot of variations. It could be different needs also from our journal, from the publishing departments, from the scientific societies, that a journal for math is not the same as a journal for chemistry, and it's not the same for a journal for psychology. So a lot of variation is probably acceptable for our business, and we need to cater with that. So it's not going to be a very streamlined and easy process to manage. And the journal managers, in our case, if I put back, are responsible for overseeing this process end-to-end from the start to the publication. So what actually the current problems of journal managers, as I said, like we don't really have that vast amount of resources actually to manage that, and we would like to manage that as efficiently as possible. I'm working in operations. Operations need to run our backend systems as efficient, as cost-effective, and up to quality as possible. So we need to provide our journal managers with the tools that actually would be able to give them and empower them to manage this process much more efficiently. what currently our challenges are basically we have multiple systems, multiple ERP systems just to cater that. It's like, I'm not going to name how many, but even for this peer review process, we have 3 submission systems to go through. So journal managers needs to log in into each system to identify what are the bottlenecks, what are the areas, which submissions are getting stuck, who's not taking action in those systems. So there are different business needs. So our primary goal for the next coming years is to drive open access content for our publications. So we're switching to the different business model. And this is key for us to ensure that this will go with existing resources, so we don't really have to scale up and manage also continuously growing amount of submissions that come to us. We do, so the challenges are we do have like reporting tools that can help us to track the things we have, but in a way we don't really able to manage this in the process view. So we have the KPIs which measures this from A to B, like how much does it take, but actually to see what actually is causing the problem is very, very difficult. We have multiple workflow management systems. There are different levels of maturity of them. We have legacy systems which don't really have enough capabilities to look into them easily and identify those bottlenecks. And it is hard for journal managers to track those individual manuscripts and to identify what are the key ones, what are the most delayed ones, what are the things that we really need to action today in order to manage this process more smoothly and efficiently. So we started with Celonis just in November 2010. Previously, we did the proof of value, very kind of successful approach that we implemented also with a team which could do that basically a very rapid prototype with our data in a few weeks' time. And currently now, as I'm standing at this stage, we just completed our rollout. So we have 100 users who are now have been trained and been connected to the systems and to the process, and will be using that for the rest of the year on a daily basis, especially the capability of the Action Engine. So just to give you, going a little bit maybe quicker, why Celonis? I think that also has been said. Like, we assessed a few companies. We had some experience previously, but we saw basically the Celonis was clear market leader in that space, had the most matured capabilities, and especially that Action Engine that at the time when we actually talked to the guys, they didn't really have it in place, but they reassured us that they're going to deliver it very soon. Actually made it a very good progress on that, and we're, I think, utilizing this capability kind of in a very good way. So why is it, maybe I have covered this, but actually why Action Engine? Why do we think that it is important for us? I think we get great deal of the dashboards, so we can really analyze and identify bottlenecks, and actually, especially using the root cause analysis, identify which editor may be slow, which part of the process gets the most delay, and we can take action of that. It's more structural, but Action Engine actually gives us kind of an operational capability to control it on an everyday basis. It's not something that we do once. It's a set of rules that we have implemented that will be continuously monitored, and like actions will be taken to have this operational control, which we currently have been not having, or had it in such a way that we couldn't use it efficiently. So this basically kind of gives you a little bit like overview of how journal managers are using Action Engine. So they daily check their tasks. They can send reminders and emails to the editors who are, or reviewers or authors who are not really following up or like being late in the process. They're able to actually to manage this efficiently, having the good history track of that, and many other things. So potentially also, if you would like to learn more about it, like you need to have like a more proper full demo with that. So I'll leave some space for you also to give some questions to us afterwards. So I think the impact has been like really we have closed the gaps that we currently had with our ERP systems that could not really give us that kind of extra level of transparency, extra level of operational control. And we actually didn't have time to do that before because it would require like hours of work to actually identify different bits and pieces. But now it's a single place where a journal manager gets into the Celonis, identifies what is most important thing to do for them today, and don't waste time on reporting. And initially, our user satisfaction was very positive so far because in operations, we are not really focusing in actually having the systems that are most user-friendly because it's internally facing. So having something that is really of the modern technology with a very nice and clear UI has been very, very positively received. So a quick roadmap as well. So we just started. I think the rollout have been completed just yesterday. I think we have been very good cooperation so far with the Action Engine team, also because we're one of the few customers who are actually engaging with them to develop it further. It's a very new capability. I think it was good to coordinate cooperation, I think, to enhance the features that were not there before, and for Celonis to hear the feedback that we have been giving them to improve that. So kind of for us, kind of the journey is just started, so that's where we are. And I think I hand over now to you, and then we can actually take the round of questions.
Perfect. So I have no slides. I thought that was the plan, but it's not. So moving from research publications to shipping lipstick and hair care, a little bit of a change. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Megan Guzauskas, and I work in the central operations team, and my responsibility is around customer care. So we support 6 different business units in about 4 or 5 different locations across the US. So just going to tell a little bit about our story. So why Celonis for us? What did we find? What have we done? And kind of where do we want to go? And we'll have time for questions after. So why Celonis for L'Oreal? When I first moved into this role about 2 years ago, we got the heads of customer care together. And just to clarify, for L'Oreal, customer care includes customer service, credit, and our customer collaboration teams, which are customer relationship building. So we got those leads together and said, so this is a new role. What is one thing we could focus on? If we nail one thing, what would it be? And it was, we spend a lot of time doing non-value add work, and we want to spend our time on customer-facing, efficiency-gaining activities. So the #1 thing was blocked orders and getting to a no-touch order. So that's really where our journey began. And we worked with our internal IT teams to say, how can you help us pull this data out of SAP? Because we're using SAP across all of those business units. Same instance of SAP. For about a year, we were on that journey that was kind of unsuccessful. We couldn't get the data the way that we wanted to see it in SAP at the levels that we wanted to see it. And we have a great relationship with our IT partners. They went to SAP Sapphire, came back, and were like, there's a tool called Celonis you guys might want to check out. So we saw it, and we saw the possibility of being able to see the things that we would be able to change to drive a difference in the organization. So that's why Celonis for us. So how we implemented. We implemented with a partner Protiviti. So Shri is here today in the audience. But we also selected representation from each of those business units because we thought it was super, super important to have their buy-in to this tool so that they would start to use it and own the data that's being shown to them. So they were part of the design, part of the data validation, and now they are the champions of Celonis within each of their business units. So really then, what did we find? So no surprise, right? We were blocking a lot of orders, but when we looked at how many we touched, we were touching, I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong, 96% of our orders. It's a lot of touches. Of that, we knew we were blocking 64%, or we found we were blocking 64%. But what was surprising is 93% of them, we manually created deliveries. So talking about what opportunities did we find? That one was the biggest one for us. Okay, how do we stop manually creating these deliveries? And honestly, it was really by design. It was not because someone said, I don't want to use automation. It was just how we designed the system. So that's where we were. And okay, we knew where we were, and we said, well, we need to set an ambition, and we need to set a goal. So where do we want to be? So we said, let's reduce our blocks by 50%, and let's have our no-touch our touched orders at 70%, so a 30 points improvement. So we set off on a journey to do so, and where we are today, so now we've been live with Celonis since November, with all of these power users and their teams trained. So right now we have about 100 active users on the system, which is really awesome. We thought we were going to have less than that, but there's a little bit of a buzz about it. So I have people stopping me in the hall all the time, like, hey, can you get me access? Can you show me how to use it? So, which is awesome. So after about 3 months of the teams really working on this process, we are now at 86% touched orders, which is a 10-point improvement. We've reduced our blocks by 20%. And our manual deliveries are now at 73%, which is also a 20-point improvement. So how did we kind of do those things, and how did we attack those opportunities? So knowing that we said deliveries were really the #1 block, we worked with our IT partners, set up a batch job, super simple, in order to automate the deliveries. Where we're going next with that is, we know there's some rules, right? It's always a balance of automation and control, because we don't want to send orders to the distribution center that aren't validated or have wrong information. So continuing to maybe create some rules in the system to allow more orders to be auto-delivered. And then credit. So other groups that I talk to, credit is a consistent one for a lot of companies. We found that 34% of our orders that ultimately shipped were blocked for credit reasons. So we shipped them, but we held them for a little while because of credit. So across these 6 business units, we assess the risk codes that we assign to the customer, which the risk code decides, do we block their order if they're over their credit limit? Do we block their order if they're past due? Or any combination of those few. And just by assessing the risk codes on our top-tier customers, we've reduced the credit blocked orders by 50%, now only blocking 17% of our orders, which was super huge, and the team continues to work on the mid-tier and lower-tier customers as well. So kind of what's next for us, right? We still have that ambition of reducing blocks by 50% and improving our no-touch to 30%. But we also are going to be implementing AR and also WM, because we feel like that will give us the holistic view of the customer, so we really can see from order to invoice, deductions, any penalties that happen, all of that in one place. So that's kind of where we are. I had some things that I wanted to share in terms of advice or tips, but I think maybe we can share that in terms of when we have questions. But I don't know if you have anything else, if we should, before we have questions, I'm not sure if you're leading the questions or if I should open it up to questions. So that's where we are now from a L'Oreal perspective. And any questions from the audience for either one of us? I feel like we can both take. Michelle has a mic. Don't even make movements, because you might have to ask a question.
And I take it. Megan, you said you're starting in customer care, but with a very defined process steps that you have defined beforehand. So whether you really make use of the whole process analysis and process mining despite looking for single steps?
So for us, honestly, L'Oreal has a tremendous amount of data, line items, cases, activities. So where we started over those 6 business units was really at an aggregated view to look at those focused KPIs. And then once we find the ones that we need to focus on, or the customers or territories, for example, that we need to focus on, then looking at where in the process we went wrong. So blocked orders. Why I say blocked orders was hard to find, it's because there's about 10 to 12 different reasons why an order could be blocked. So then being able to use that process viewer to expand it and find out exactly what was going wrong. Does that answer?
Great, thanks. Another short question for implementation. You have a kind of sourcing or a scientific team designing it, and then the users using the dashboards, or how did you really roll it out?
From a L'Oreal perspective, I'm a business user, so we were the design. We used Portivity as an implementation partner who was doing more of the technical aspects of the connection, and then partnering with our IT team that was doing more of the Hana connection and any changes that needed to happen in Hana. Did that answer Shree?
How much of Celonis out of the box did you use versus having to customize it for L'Oreal?
We customized it tremendously. So the reason we did that was because of the amount of data that we have. So because of the volumes of data and the fact that we wanted to see all 6 business units together, we had to create some aggregated views, which are very different than the Process Explorer type of view that you're probably used to seeing a lot. These are more of a high-level KPI that you can still get to a PO order detail level, but then we take that information and go into the process viewer. So we created all of those kind of overarching views and then use standard for the rest.
Thank you.
Did that answer?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Perfect.
I have a question to Alexander. You said that one of the questions you wanted to answer with the help of Celonis is for each of your editors to know what's to do next. So what I have to do, what are my priorities? And it's a nice question, but well, at least in Germany, you have always this personal assessment restriction, so you're basically not allowed to assess personally. How did you solve this problem? So basically, if each of the editors knows what manuscript is due at longest, let's say, there is someone else who can assess how good the editor works. So.
Yeah, I understand your question. I think we did run through the GDPR compliance process throughout the company to assess what kind of data could be shared. And as part of that, also, if it's done for the valid business reason, we need to inform the customers or our users that it is being done as a part of our general terms and conditions of using our systems. And this has been part because it really adds and enhances our process to deliver better quality product. That have been compliant and to our policies internally in the company to run this analysis on those actions.
So basically you are looking really at the single editor level in your Celonis analysis.
So you can single out actually each article. We still do...
No, not the article. I mean, can you separate which articles belong to one editor?
Yes, it has been previously also possible to do using our system, so each editor gets articles assigned, and the system actually tracks all of the records, so this is part of our core business, and we have a managing editor who assigns it to subordinate editors. Everything rolls up, and it has been possible to do before Celonis as well. It was just not enough visible and transparent. But each publisher who actually manages the portfolio of journals also can see how the different editors perform with our systems and reporting as well.
It's quite interesting because I'm coming from insurance industry, and we're not allowed to assess our employees and like on a single person level. So what we do, we have groups of 5+ employees, let's say, and then assessing on the group level. So it was an interesting for me to know how it works in Elsevier. Thank you.
Celonis has also some more functionality, like the conformance checker and social network. Did you use that for your analysis?
So. Tell about my case. In our case, because our process is not standard per se, so it has a lot of variation which we have to accept as a business. This might not have been the most interesting capability, but I see the value in more standard processes would like more rigidity to implement them. That would be very useful. And we did this. We looked into that and assessed that. And I think as a part of the kind of extension to the maybe future use cases, we might look at that again. And try to use it, but not for the current use case.
Same from us from a L'Oreal perspective. We are not currently, but are super excited about using it and do see the value in doing so. We're currently working on just upgrading the version of Celonis that we're on and being able to have access to some of the cool functionality that we saw.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, another question. How frequently are you taking the data? So a lot of people have said it could be quite overwhelming when you see all that data. Did you start off with a lower frequency and increase it? How did you approach that?
So from a L'Oreal perspective, I can go first. For our order to cash, we took everything for 12 months we started. So, and we update every night for anything that shipped that day. So we now have expanded to 18 months because we just saw value in seeing like a month over month, like a month, year over year, same month. And so we do it nightly, and then we have one view that we do update every hour, and we use that more as actionable information. And that's really about our blocked orders. So when we're actioning them to say, this order's blocked because of X reason, and I need to contact someone to resolve it. The other views that we have are more after the fact.
And for our case, our process actually takes quite long. So a publication of scientific article may take months. So we had to take bigger sample of data in order to actually have some projections. So we started off with 3 years of our transactional data. And what we are kind of now, and we have restricted a little bit our kind of current use case with the only specific journals that we would try to drive this open access portion of our content, just to have more focus and not being like really with the initial case being spread out with our 2,000 journals, which would be harder to track the benefits.
Thank you.
Do you have Celonis on premises or on cloud?
L'Oreal on-prem.
On-prem.
We have in cloud. Okay. We actually started using the IBC from the start. By the time we started engaging, this version has been just rolled out. And what we actually, before we have discussed and were in the sales process, we have not actually seen this kind of the version yet, but by the time we signed the contract, the new version has been released. It was, I think, was very positive as well.
Okay, thank you.
Question connected a bit to that. What is your source? Is it single source or is it several sources where you get your data from?
L'Oreal directly from Hana, so single source SAP.
And we currently using, we do have multiple ERP systems that support the process, but we do have a so-called reporting warehouse in between, which actually aggregates all the data in a single place. And we got Celonis connected already right away to that layer, which gave us a little bit of kind of a leapfrog step, and not to actually to get the individual connections done. So.
What does the organization behind your process mining initiatives look like? Do you work fully just on process mining, or do you have additional tasks as well?
Go ahead.
I think we just, it's our first initiative in the company within our vertical of operations. It's a shared service for basically within our company. So it's a very small and tiny engagement yet. So we do, I'm kind of representing, I'm leading this initiative now, and I'm only one that actually from kind of business perspective responsible for the delivery, but we do have the users on kind of who are using that. So we have trained kind of 100 users and some analysts and some data scientists as well who will be then supporting that throughout that. But we just started the journey, so my intention is actually to grow this into the more bigger unit, of course.
So from L'Oreal, it is part of my job. I have other areas that I'm working on, but we have leveraged those power users kind of that I spoke about before in each business unit to kind of be the champions, and it's not their full-time job either. So it's, again, I think we're all learning and figuring out what the best process is, but that's how we've done it. It's part of the core team. It was a central team at L'Oreal, a central initiative, but pushed out to the divisions to actually use and execute and make the changes.
Thanks.
Thanks. For the use cases that you both described, can you tell us what you used before you used Celonis? How did you address those problems?
There you go. So we used SAP reports. So they were delayed and took quite a long time to run, and didn't really give us the level of detail that we wanted to get to be able to know exactly what we needed to change to make a difference. So for example, I talked about 63% of blocked orders. It wasn't a surprise to us that we were blocking that many orders. We just didn't know all the reasons why. So this helped us to find what we needed to actually fix to reduce that. Because we were working on blocked orders for a whole year before we actually had the visibility to this, and maybe had like a 5-point improvement. Like it was improving, but nothing drastic. So it was primarily SAP, and honestly, we'd pull it out into Power BI, or some people would use Excel to create their own reporting.
Yeah, and from our side, I think, to be honest, I think a few years ago we were still using a lot of spreadsheets to track some things. And we have improved a lot of our reporting capabilities and analytics capabilities. We kind of built up a center of excellence, which have now a lot of different types of tools, which can provide much better reporting than before. But to be honest, I think our general managers didn't really have enough time to actually look into the 25 different reports, identify what's important, what's not. And this has been not done on a kind of a more rigid manner. So, but this is basically what we should have been doing, but we were not just being able to do that.
Thank you.
What was your experience with distinguishing between real exceptions and false positives? So was it hard? How was it?
I'm thinking before I answer, sorry. It actually wasn't that hard, to be honest. I think the data kind of tells the story. There could be a reason why. So I'll use examples of cycle time, something that we look at. For one business unit, it may be 14 days. And that is for that business unit, they're saying that's not true. That's not our cycle time. It actually is true. It's just when you look at it, a lot of times you only filter on basic orders, and you filter out promotional orders. So I think people have just learned that there may be conditions that make something true, and it's not that it's not true. What you're seeing is true. It's just that we can maybe explain and understand what's happening within that process better now to tell why something's not like a false positive or not true. Kind of.
And for us, I think also a part of the capabilities that we're using, so it's not purely machine learning outcomes that we are assessing. So I think the outliers that we see in the process, as you mentioned, might have a valid reason or not. So we still need to kind of investigate per use case whether it's a valid outlier or not, but in majority of the cases that it is an outlier that requires an action, so it's not something that has been a system glitch or something. Usually there is a valid reason for that to happen. And it's very data-driven, so it's not something that algorithms are trying to predict or assess, so it's really kind of what happened in the past. So it's really there has been a reason for that.
So you were mentioning that, Megan, that you were able to decrease the number of blocked orders, increase the automation rate for delivery creation in a quite short time, I would say.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you for some tips how to do this, like how to really bring the findings to the value creation.
So maybe 3 answers to the question, but I'll start with the first one. It can't be from me. So I'm a central team, and it can't only be me that's driving the change. So having those 6 champions, if you will, that are sitting in the division, critical. They had to believe in the tool, they had to believe in the findings, and believe in the value that they would see if we did reduce the number, which they did. Takes a little while, but they did. They do. And then, so I think I caught the tail end of the conversation before, so that's kind of the bottom-up way to do it. And then helping our senior leadership understand why we need to drive these initiatives and what value that would have. So we found a place where we communicate monthly what our results are in that area. And it's really interesting when you start tracking something and publishing it, you can drive change kind of quickly. So the teams are almost obsessed with that number at this point.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
If you guys have others while we're walking around, you can
Yes, sure.
you can grab us anytime.
We can thank Megan and Alex for their time today, and thank all of you for coming.
Thank you.